"Ready, Bill?" asked Harl Swanson. Bill Cressman nodded. "Then kiss 1935 goodbye," cried the giant Swede, and swung over the lever. The machine quivered violently, then hung motionless in pitch blackness. In the snap of a finger, the bright sunlight was blotted out and a total darkness rushed in upon the two men. Electric lights glowed above the instrument boards, feeble against the utter blackness which crowded the quartz windows. The sudden change astounded Bill. He had been prepared for something, but nothing like this. He half started out of his seat, then settled back. Harl grinned at him. "Scared?" "Hell no," said Bill. "You're traveling in time, my lad," said Harl. "You aren't in space anymore. You're in a time stream. Space is curved about you. Can't travel in time while you're still in space. Curve space about you, though, and you can. And out of space there's no light at all, no gravity, none of the universal phenomena." Bill nodded. They had worked it all out many times before, the double-wall construction to withstand the vacuum. The insulation against the absolute zero that ruled where there could be no heat. Gravity grids at their feet, a heating system to keep the motors from freezing, atmosphere generators to feed the passengers and the engines. It had cost 10 years of work and a fortune running into 7 figures. Time after time they had blundered, again and again failed. The discoveries they made along the way would have rocked the world, revolutionized industry. But they breathed no word of it. They thought of only one thing: time travel. To delve into the past, to conquer the future. To this the two young scientists had dedicated all their labors, and at last success lay beneath their hands. In 1933, they had achieved it. Miniature flyers, launched with miniature time machines set to run automatically, had buzzed about the laboratory and vanished into unguessed ages. Then they built one set to travel a single month into the future, and in a month's time, almost to the second, it had materialized on the laboratory floor. That settled it. Time travel was proved beyond doubt. Now Harl and Bill were out in the stream itself, in the great tri-motored plane that had vanished from a Denver street before a gasping crowd. Harl crouched over the instrument board, his straining ears catching the wheezy mutter of the 3 motors as the inexorable fingers of absolute zero clutched at their throbbing metal. This was dangerous, but the only safe way. Had they plunged into the stream from the surface, they might have come out buried under shifting earth, under some great building, under a canal. Aloft, they were safe from whatever might rise above them across the passing centuries, and the machine itself would serve them as transport, perhaps as escape in whatever future day they emerged. For there was no way to know what a few thousand years might bring. The motors wheezed on a closed throttle. At full speed they might dash the propellers to bits. But warn them they must, or die the instant they rolled out into space with 3 dead engines, a crash neither could hope to survive. "Give her the gun, Bill," said Harl, tense. Bill pushed the accelerator. The motors protested, sputtered, then burst into a roar. Sound was possible here in the artificial air of the cabin, though out in the time stream itself there could be none. Harl listened anxiously, hoping the propellers would hold. Bill cut the acceleration, and they ran more smoothly again. Harl glanced at his wristwatch. Even here, where actual time could not be measured by clocks, the little watch still ticked off the seconds and minutes. 8 minutes out. 7 more, and they must roll from time back into space. 15 minutes was all the tortured motors could stand of this cold and vacuum. He checked the time dial. It read 2,816. 2,816 years into the future already. They should be well past 5,000 when the 15 minutes ended. "You're sure we're still over Denver?" Bill asked. Harl chuckled. "If we aren't, we may find ourselves billions of miles out in space. It's a chance we have to take. We should be occupying exactly the same hole in space we started from. It should remain the same." Their lungs began to ache. Either the generators were failing or the leakage into the vacuum was worse than expected. The air was undeniably thinning, though the motors still ran steadily. "How long?" bellowed Bill. 12 minutes, Harl reported. The dial read 4,224. 3 minutes, Bill replied. "I guess we can stand it. It's getting colder, though, and the air is pretty thin." "Leakage," said Harl gruffly. The minutes dragged. Bill tried to think. Less than a quarter hour ago, they had been in 1935. Now they were passing years at a lightning pace, over 350 each space minute. They must be nearing 6,450. He glanced at his hands. Blue dot. The heat was leaking out of the cabin fast, the air too rare for safety. Suppose they lost consciousness. They would freeze, drive on senselessly through time, frozen corpses riding the aeons, while the earth beneath them dissolved and new worlds and galaxies were born around them. He glanced at his hands again. It was hard to breathe now, the air too rare for safety. Suppose they went unconscious. The time needle would reach the pin, bend back upon itself, and slip past it, slamming against the side of the dial. Still struggling to record the flight of the years while two frozen corpses rode on through the eons. He chafed his hands. The dial read 5,516. "A quarter of a minute," snapped Harl, teeth chattering, hand on the lever. "All right." He jerked it. They hung in the sky. Harl cried out in astonishment. It was twilight. Beneath them lay the ruins of a vast city. To the east, a sea lapped toward a murky horizon, its coast a desert of heaped sand. The motors, warming to their task, bellowed a mighty challenge. "Where are we?" cried Harl. Bill shook his head. "It's not Denver," said Harl. "Doesn't look much like it," agreed Bill, teeth still chattering. There was no sign of humanity below. Bill circled, warming the motors, then brought the machine down in a long swoop toward a level stretch of sand near one of the largest white stone ruins. It hit the ground, bounced high in a cloud of sand, struck again, then rolled to a stop. "We're here," he said. Bill checked the dial. It read 5,626. "This is the year 7,561, he said slowly. "Got your gun?" asked Harl. Bill's hand found the reassuring touch of his .45 in its holster. "I have it." They stepped out. The sand glittered under their boots. Harl turned the key in the door and locked the ring to his belt. "Wouldn't do to lose the keys," he said. A chill wind blew over the desert, moaning among the ruins, carrying a freight of fine, hard granules. Even in their heavy clothing, the two shivered. Harl grasped Bill's arm, pointing east. There hung a huge, dull red ball. "The sun," Bill said, his jaw falling. "Yes, the sun." They stared at one another in the half-light. "Then this isn't the year 7,561, stammered Bill. "No. More likely the year 750,000, perhaps even more. The dial was wrong, badly wrong. We were traveling through time 1,000 times faster than we thought. They studied the landscape in silence. Ruins towered hundreds of feet above the sands, of noble proportions, a marvelous architecture the 20th century could never have matched. The stone pure white and gleaming faintly in the twilight, the feeble red sun could not dispel. A creature somewhat like a dog, dull gray, tail hanging low, stood silhouetted on a dune, then vanished. "These are the ruins of Denver," said Harl. "That sea must cover the whole of eastern North America. Only the Rockies remain unsubmerged, and they're desert now. We must have covered at least 750,000 years, perhaps 7 million. "What about the human race? Any people left?" asked Bill. "Possibly. Man is a hardy animal. It takes a lot to kill him, and this change came slowly." Bill turned and his cry rang in Harl's ear. "Harl world." Running toward them, leaping over the sands, came a motley horde of men, dressed in furs, carrying no weapons, but charging as if to attack. Harl yanked his .45 from its holster, a sense of power in the burly six-shooter. The men, furs flying, close to within 100 yards, yelling blood-curdling whoops that left no doubt they were enemies. No weapons, though. There were some 50 in the mob, big odds, but not too great. "We might as well let them have it," Harl said. The two guns roared. The mob still forged ahead, leaving members prone in the sand. They fired again. Men staggered and fell, but the rest hurdled the bodies and raced on, less than 50 feet away now. The guns ran empty. Swiftly the two reloaded, but before they could fire again, the mob was on top of them. Bill thrust his gun into a running foeman's face and fired, sidestepped to avoid the falling body, took a knotted fist to the head, and dropped to his knees. Drilling 2 more of the enemy from there before they piled on him. He fought blindly, hands, feet, bared teeth. Felt bodies wilt under his blows, felt blood on his own hands, sand choking his eyes and nostrils. A few feet away, Harl fought the same desperate fight, weapons knocked away, resorting to the tactics of ancient forebears. It seemed minutes, though it could only have been seconds before sheer weight of numbers subdued them, bound their hands and feet with thongs, and left them trussed like 2 fowls. "Hurt, Bill?" called Harl. "No, just mussed up a bit." "Me, too," said Harl. They lay staring at the sky while their captors moved off and massed about the plain. A loud banging reached them, the others trying to force an entrance. "Let them bang," said Harl. "They can't break anything." "Except a propeller," replied Bill. After more banging, the men returned, untied the captives' feet, and hauled them up. For the first time, the two could study their captors properly. Tall men, well-proportioned, clean of limb, yet unmistakably barbarous. Hair and beards roughly trimmed, a purposeless slouch to their walk, dressed in none too clean furs, bearing no arms, their eyes shifty and furtive as those of hunted beasts, always watching for danger. "March," said one, a large fellow with a protruding front tooth. The single word, plain English, oddly accented, but good, pure English, all the same. They marched, flanked on either side by their captors, back over the same route the future men had come, passing the dead without a second glance from their own comrades. Life, plainly, was cheap in this place. They passed between monstrous ruins. The men talked among themselves, but though the tongue was English, it was so mixed with unfamiliar words, and spoken with such an accent that the two could understand little. They reached what appeared to be a street, lined with ruins, and now other humans appeared, women and children among them, staring at the captives and jabbering excitedly. "Where are you taking us?" Bill asked a man beside him. The man ran his fingers through his beard and spat in the sand. "To the arena," he said slowly, that the 20th century man might understand. "What for?" "The games," said the man, shortly, as if displeased at being questioned. "What are the games?" asked Harl. "You'll find out soon enough. Held at high sun today," growled the other, to a burst of brutal laughter from the rest. "They will find out when they face the minions of Golan-Kirt," chortled a voice. "The minions of Golan-Kirt," exclaimed Harl. "Hold your tongue," snarled the man with the protruding tooth, "or we will tear it from your mouth." The two asked no more questions. They plodded on, legs aching in the packed sand, though the future men did not hurry their pace. A crowd of children gathered along the procession, shrieking shrill gibberish at the two, and now and then one who crowded too close was slapped aside by a guard. For 15 minutes they toiled up a sandy slope, and from the top saw the arena below. A great building, open to the air, that had somehow escaped the general ruin, patched here and there with repairs of decidedly inferior workmanship. It was circular, about half a mile in diameter, built of the same pure white stone as the rest of the ruined city. The two 20th century men gasped at its size, but their captors urged them on, down the slope and through one of the great arching gateways into the arena itself, where tier upon tier of seats rose on every side, and a series of steel cages stood beneath the seats opposite. "They're gonna lock us up, evidently," said Bill. The man with the protruding tooth laughed, as at a huge joke. "It will not be for long." A number of the cages were already occupied. Men clung to the bars watching the group cross the sand. Others sat listless, showing little interest, many of them bearing the marks of long incarceration. Before one of the cells they halted. A future man unlocked it. The others seized the two, freed their hands, and hurled them roughly inside. The door clanged shut, the key grating in the lock. They picked themselves up out of the dirt covering the floor and squatted on their heels to watch their captors cross the arena and vanish through the archway. "I guess we're in for it," said Bill. Harl produced a pack of cigarettes. "Light up," he said gruffly. Smoke from tobacco grown in 1935 floated out of their cell over the ruins of Denver, beneath a dying sun. They crushed out their cigarettes and made a minute examination of the prison, inch by inch, heavy masonry throughout, and the iron gate gave no hope either. Again they squatted on their heels. 6 hours since we landed, Harl said, checking his watch. And by the shadows it's still morning. The sun was well up when we arrived. "The days are longer than 1935, said Bill. "The earth turns slower. They may run 24 hours or more." "Listen," hissed Harl. Voices reached them, mingled with the harsh grating of steel, growing louder, coming from their right. "If we only had our guns," moaned Harl. "It's the other prisoners," gasped Bill. "They must be feeding them." His surmise was correct. Before their cell appeared an old man, stooped, a long white beard hanging over his skinny chest, his hair curling over his shoulders. In one hand, he carried a gallon jug, in the other, a huge loaf of bread. But it was neither the bread nor the jug that caught the eyes of Harl and Bill. Thrust in his loincloth, beside a massive ring of keys, were their own 245s. He set down the jug and loaf, unlocked a small panel near the bottom of the great door, and set the food carefully inside. The two exchanged a glance. The same thought in both minds. Let him come close enough, and it would be a simple matter to seize him. With the guns, there might be a chance to blaze away back to the ship. But the oldster was already pulling the weapons from his loincloth, and, their breath held in wonder, the two saw him lay them down beside the food. "The command of Golan-Kirt," he muttered. "He has arrived to witness the games. He commanded the weapons be returned. They will make the games more interesting." "More interesting," chuckled Harl, rocking on the balls of his feet. These future men, seemingly weaponless themselves, clearly had no notion of the deadliness of a 45. "Golan-Kirt?" asked Bill, softly. The old man seemed to see them for the first time. "Know you not of Golan-Kirt, he who came out of the cosmos?" "No." "Ah. Then can I believe what has come to my ears of you, that you came out of time, in a great machine?" "That is true," said Harl. "We came out of the 20th century. The old man shook his head slowly. "I know naught of the 20th century. What are years?" "A year," Harl explained, "is a measurement of time." "Time cannot be measured," the old man replied, dogmatic. "Any man who thinks he can measure time is a fool." He barely glanced at Harl's wristwatch. "That is a foolish mechanism and has nothing to do with time." Bill laid a warning hand on his friend's arm. "A year," he said slowly, "is our term for one revolution of the Earth about the sun." "So that is what it means. Why didn't you say so? The movement of the Earth has no association with time, though. Time is purely relative." "Can you tell us how many revolutions the Earth has made since the world we knew?" Bill asked. "How can I, when we speak in terms neither understands? I can only tell you that since Golan-Kirt came out of the cosmos, the Earth has circled the sun over 5 million times. 5 million years, at least. There was no telling how much more. Their instrument had been wrong, and how wrong they could not have guessed until this moment. The 20th century now had an unreal remote sound, as far away in this age of the brick-red sun and the ruins of Denver as the age when man first emerged from the beast. "Has the sun always been as it is?" asked Harl. "Our wise ones tell us it was once so hot it hurt one's eyes, and that it is cooling, that someday it will give no light or heat at all. Of course, before that happens, all men will be dead." He pulled the panel shut and locked it, turning to go. "Wait!" cried Harl. "Sit down, friend. We would like to talk further." The old man hesitated, then turned back. "We came from a time when the sun hurt one's eyes," said Harl. "We have seen Denver, a great and proud city, seen this land, when the grass grew and rain fell, and broad plains lay where the sea now is." The oldster sank to the sand before their cage, his eyes lit with wild enthusiasm, his skinny hands clutching the bars. "You have looked upon the world when it was young. You have felt rain. It seldom rains here." "We came as friends," Harl assured him, "ready for war all the same. Why were we treated as foes?" There are no friends here, cackled the old man, eyes on the guns. Not since Golan-Kirt came. All are at one another's throats. Who is this Golan-Kirt? He came out of the cosmos to rule over the world, the old man intoned, as if chanting. He is neither man nor beast. There is no good in him. He hates and hates. He is pure evil. There is no proof the cosmos is benevolent. Long ago our ancestors believed in love. That was a fallacy. Evil is greater than good. Have you ever seen Golan-Kirt? Asked Bill, moving closer to the bars. I have. Tell us of him. I cannot. Stark terror showed in the old man's eyes. I cannot. He huddled closer, his voice dropping to an uncanny whisper. Men out of time, I will tell you this much. He is hated, because he teaches hate. We obey him because we must. He holds our minds in the hollow of his hand. He rules by suggestion only. He is not immortal. He fears death. He is afraid. There is a way, if only one with courage might be found. His face blanched, a look of horror in his eyes, his claw-like hands clutching madly at the bars. He slumped against the gate, gasping. Golan-Kirt, your weapons. Believe nothing. Close your mind to all suggestion. He fought for another breath. I have fought. I have won. I have told you. He has killed me. He will not kill you, now that you know. Your weapons will lull him. He's easy to kill, by one who does not believe in him. The whisper pinched out, and the old man slid slowly to the sand before the cage. Killed by suggestion, gasped Harl. He was a brave man, said Bill. Harl's eyes lit on the keyring. Kneeling, he drew the body close and ripped it from the loincloth. We're going home. And on the way out we'll bump off the big shot, added Bill. He lifted the guns and clicked fresh cartridges into the chambers. Harl tried several keys before the lock screeched and the gate swung open. They passed out, pausing a moment in silent tribute before the body of the old man, a hero who had flung his hatred in the face of the thing that taught hate to the people of the world. Scanty as his warning had been, it set the two on guard, gave them some inkling of what to expect. Turning, they started. Crowds of future men were filing into the amphitheater, rapidly filling the seats, a subdued roar rising, the populace assembling for the games. This may complicate matters, said Bill. I don't think so, replied Harl. It's Golan-Kirt we must deal with in any case. These men don't count. He holds an absolute control over them. And removing that control may change their whole psychology. The only thing we can do is fight Golan-Kirt and act accordingly, said Bill. The man who took us spoke of his minions, Harl said thoughtfully. He may produce hallucinations, Bill hazarded, make one believe something exists when it doesn't. That's why the people think his creatures come at his beck and call. But the old man knew it was mere suggestion, objected Harl. If all the people knew that, Golan-Kirt's rule would end abruptly. Without belief in him, the suggestion by which he rules would be impossible. He paid for that knowledge with his life, said Bill. Still, he didn't know all of it. He believed this entity came out of the cosmos. It may have, said Harl. We're at least 5 million years in the future. I expect some great intelligence, physical, since the old man claimed to have seen it. which should make our job easier." "He said it was not immortal," said Bill. "So it's vulnerable, and our guns may do the work. And we're not to believe a single thing we feel, hear, or see. It rules wholly by suggestion, and will try to kill us the same way it killed him." "It's a matter of willpower," Harl said, "of brain and bluff. These people's will has degenerated under his rule. It's almost hereditary now, accepting his power. We have the advantage of an age when men were obliged to use their brains. We are doubters, schemers, bluffers. Golan-Kirt will find us tougher than these future men." Bill produced cigarettes and the two lighted up. Slowly they walked across the vast arena, guns hanging in their right hands. People were filing into the place, and the tiers were filling. A roar came out of the seats before them, the cry of the gathering crowd, the cry for blood, the desire to see battle. Harl grinned. "Regular football crowd," he commented. More and more poured in, but it was plain the inhabitants of the ruined city could fill only a very small section of the thousands upon thousands of seats. The two seemed lost in the mighty space. Above them, almost at the zenith, hung the vast red sun. They seemed to move in a twilight-filled desert rimmed in by enormous white cliffs. "Denver must have been a large city at the time this place was built," commented Bill. "Think of the number of people it would hold." "Wonder what it was used for." "Probably we'll never know," said Harl. They had gained the approximate center of the arena. Harl halted. "I've been thinking. We must have a fairly good chance against Golan-Kirt. For 15 minutes, every thought of ours has been open defiance of him, and he hasn't attempted our annihilation. I'm beginning to believe he can't read our minds the way he could the old man's. He killed him the moment he spoke treason." Bill nodded. And as if in answer, a great weight seemed to press upon them. A deadly illness crept over Bill. His knees sagged, his brain whirled, spots danced before his eyes. A horrible pain gripped his stomach. He stumbled, and a hand seized his shoulder, shaking him fiercely. Through the clearing mist he saw Harl's face, white and lined, lips moving. "Buck up, old man. There's nothing wrong with you. You're feeling fine." Something snapped inside Bill's head. Suggestion. The suggestion of Golan-Kirt. He had to fight it. He planted his feet firmly in the sand, straightened, and smiled. "Hell no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm feeling fine." Harl slapped him on the back. "That's the spirit. It almost floored me too. We've got to fight it, boy." Bill laughed harshly, strength flowing back into him. They had won the first round. "But where is this Golan-Kirt?" "Invisible," snarled Harl. "But I have a theory he can't put in his best licks that way. We'll force him to show himself and give him the works." The frenzied roar of the crowd reached them. They had seen the little drama, and were crying for more. Suddenly a spiteful rattle broke out behind the two. They dropped flat, burrowing into the sand as puffs kicked up around them. Bill felt a searing pain in his arm. A bullet had found him, then another in his leg. There was no cover in this vast level expanse from the gun chattering at their rear. This was the end, he thought. There was no obstruction to shield them in this vast level expanse from the gun that chuckled and chattered at their rear. Another hit caught him in the leg. Then he laughed, a wild laugh. There was no machine gun, no bullets. It was all suggestion. A trick to make them believe they were being killed. A trick which, carried far enough, would kill them all the same. He struggled to his knees, hauling Harl up beside him, his leg and arm still paining him, but he paid them no attention. There was nothing wrong with them, he told himself fiercely. Absolutely nothing wrong. It's suggestion again, he shouted at Harl. There isn't any machine gun. They regained their feet. A couple 100 yards off, a khaki-clad figure crouched behind a gun that chattered wickedly, flame licking its muzzle. That isn't a machine gun, said Bill slowly. Of course it's not, Harl said, as if by rote. They walked toward the flaming gun. Bullets seemed to whistle around them, but none struck, and the pain in Bill's arm and leg had already vanished. Suddenly the gun disappeared, the khaki-clad figure with it. I thought it would do that, said Bill. The old boy's still going strong, though, replied Harl. Here's more of his suggestion. Harl pointed to one of the arching gateways, through which marched file upon file of soldiers, clad in khaki, metal helmets on their heads, guns across their shoulders. An officer uttered a sharp command and the troops began to deploy over the field. A shrill blast of a bugle drew their attention from the soldiers, and through another gateway, they beheld the advance of what appeared to be a cohort of Roman legionnaires. Shields flashing dully in the sun, the rattle of arms distinctly heard. Do you know what I believe? Asked Harl. Golan-Kirt can't suggest anything new to us. The soldiers, the legionnaires, all things we already carry in our own heads. Then how is it we see them, knowing they don't exist? Asked Bill. I don't know. There are things about this business I can't understand. Anyhow, he's giving the crowd a good show, said Bill. The bleachers were in an uproar, women screaming, men roaring, the populace thoroughly enjoying itself. A lion, large and ferocious, leaped past the two men. A thunder of hoofbeats announced more of the brain's creatures. It's about time we did something, said Harl. He fired his .45 into the air. A hush fell. Golan-Kirt, attention, he roared, in a voice that carried through the whole arena. We challenge you to personal combat. We have no fear of your creatures. You are the one we wish to fight. An awed silence fell. Never before had their god been openly challenged. The crowd waited for the two to be stricken down. They were not. Again, Harl's voice rang out. Come out of hiding, you fat-bellied toad. Come and fight if you have the guts, you dirty yellow coward. The crowd caught the insult, if not the words, and a threatening murmur rolled from the bleachers. Men leaped the low wall and raced across the arena. Then a sonorous voice rolled out, deep and strong. Stop. I, Golan-Kirt, will deal with these men. The soldiers and the lion had vanished. The arena stood empty, save for the two and a score of future men frozen at the voice that came from nothingness. Harl reloaded his gun. Bill mopped his brow. It's going to be brains now, Harl told his friend. Bill grinned. Two mediocre intelligences against a great one. Look, Bill. A field of light had formed above their heads, a small ball of brightness, vibrating, growing. As the vibrations increased, the light faded and a monstrosity took form, hanging in the air, unsupported. A gigantic naked brain some 2 feet across, convolutions exposed, 2 tiny pig-like eyes, and a curving beak beneath it in an atrophied face. It was a ghastly thing. The two fought to keep their self-control. Greetings, Golan-Kirt, drawled Harl, sarcasm edging the words, his arm swinging up, finger tightening on the trigger. But before the muzzle could line up, his arm froze, held rigid by the power pouring from the brain. Bill's gun broke the silence with a sullen roar, but his arm too was flung aside, the bullet missing by a fraction of an inch. "Presumptuous fools," came a voice that was no voice, a sense of hearing alone, telepathy, powerful emanations pouring from the brain. "You would fight me, Golan-Kirt, who holds 100-fold the mental power of your combined brains, who holds the knowledge of all time." "We would fight you," snarled Harl. "We know you for what you are, not out of the cosmos, a laboratory specimen developed under artificial conditions, unknown ages ago. You are not immortal. You fear our weapons. A bullet in that dirty brain will finish you." "Who are you to judge?" came the thought wave. "With your tiny 20th century brain, you have come unbidden into my time and defied me. I shall destroy you. I do not fear you or your ridiculous weapons. Yet you foiled us when we tried to use them. If I could reach you, I'd need no weapon. I could tear you apart with my 2 hands. "Say on," rumbled the thought waves, mockery in them. "Say what you believe me to be, and when you are done, I shall obliterate you. Dust in the air, ashes on the sand." Harl raised his voice, almost shouting deliberately, so the future men might hear and know the true nature of their tyrant. They did hear, and their mouths gaped. "You once were a man," Harl roared, "a great scientist. You studied the brain, discovered some secret that let you develop it beyond all reason. And sure of your technique, transformed yourself into a brain creature. You are a fraud and an imposter. You have misruled these people for millions of years. You are not out of the cosmos. You are a man, or what was once a man. An atrocity, an abomination." The thought emanations trembled, as if with rage. "You lie. I am out of the cosmos. I am immortal. I shall kill you, kill you." Suddenly Bill laughed, a resounding guffaw, an escape from the terrible tension. But a genuinely ludicrous angle had struck him. 2 20th century men, millions of years out of their depth, wrangling with a cheat posing as a god to a people who wouldn't be born till long after he was dead. He felt the brain's power center on him, sweat streaming, his strength leaving him. He stopped laughing, and was struck as if by a blow, staggering. Then realization flashed through him. Laughter. That was it. Laughter and ridicule. "Laugh, you fool, laugh," he screamed at Harl, who obeyed uncomprehendingly. The two rocked with laughter, whooping and roaring. Hardly knowing what he did, Bill screeched horrible things at the great brain, reviled it, taunted it with unspeakable names. And Harl caught on and understood. A supreme egoism such as this could not bear ridicule, would lose its grip before a storm of jeers. For uncounted centuries it had known only the highest honor. Derision was a weapon it had never faced. Harl joined the mockery, a high carnival of it, their tongues forming taunts they weren't even conscious of, laughing between sentences with satanic glee. Through it all they felt the brain's anger mounting, their bodies racked with pain, wanting to fall and writhe in agony. But they dared not stop laughing, dared not cease the derision. It was their one weapon. Without it, the waves of suggestion pouring over them would have snapped every nerve in their bodies. They sensed the great brain raging, crazed with anger. They were getting its goat, ridiculing the very life from it. Unconsciously, their laughter lowered, and from sheer exhaustion they lapsed into silence. For years on end it had lived without struggle, without question that it was ruler of the earth. Now they sensed the futile anger and the devastating fear that revolved in its convolutions. Then, suddenly, the brain's force renewed, drawn from some reserve strength, struck them like a blow, doubling them over, clouding their eyes, racking every nerve and joint. Hot iron seemed to sear them, needles thrust into their flesh, knives slashing their bodies. They reeled blindly, crying out in pain. Through the red haze of torture came a whisper, soft and enchanting, beckoning them toward escape. Turn your weapons on yourselves. End all of this torture. Death is painless. The whisper fluttered through their brains. That was the way out. Why endure this endless agony? The muzzle against one's head. A pressure on the trigger. Oblivion. Bill placed his gun against his temple, finger contracting on the trigger. He laughed. A rare joke, robbing Golan-Kirt by his own hand. Then another voice broke through. Harl's. You fool! It's Golan-Kirt! It's Golan-Kirt, you fool! Bill saw his friend staggering toward him, face pinched with pain, lips shouting the warning. His hand dropped. Chagrin swept over him. The brain had played its trump card and failed, though it had nearly finished him. Without Harl, he'd have been stretched on the sand, a suicide. Then they felt the brain's power slipping, its strength faltering, ebbing. They had beaten it. They sensed the futile anger and devastating fear churning in its convolutions. Beaten at last by men from a forgotten age, defeated by ridicule, a thing it had never known nor suspected. They stopped their laughter, sides sore, throats hoarse. Then they heard, the arena resounding with laughter of its own. The crowd was laughing, roaring. The future men bent over, stamping their feet, throwing back their heads, screaming to the murky skies, hooting Golan-Kirt, screaming insults at him. It was the end of his rule. For generations they had hated him with the very hate he had taught them. Now they feared him no longer, and hate rode unchained. From a god he had fallen to the estate of a ridiculous fraud, a thing of pity, an uncloaked clown, simply a naked, defenseless brain that had bluffed its way through centuries of kingship. Through bleared eyes the two saw the great brain writhing under the scorn of its erstwhile subjects, laughed powerless, its close-set eyes glowing fiercely, its beak clicking angrily, too tired now to regain its rule. The revolvers came up almost simultaneously, sights lining on the brain. There was no power left to ward off the danger. The guns roared, spitting fire. The brain turned over in the air, blood spurting, great gashes opening in it. And with a thump, it struck the ground and lay still. The time travelers, weariness closing their eyes, knees suddenly weak, slumped to the sand, the 45s still smoking. Over the arena floated the full-toned roar of the future men. Hail to the deliverers! Golan-Kirt is dead. His rule is ended. Hail to the saviors of the race. It is impossible to reverse time. You cannot travel back to your own age. We of this age knew travel into the future was possible, but under Golan-Kirt, there was no material progress, only steady degeneration. We, as a people, beg you not to attempt it. Old Agnar Null, his white beard streaming in the wind, spoke seriously. We love you. You freed us of the tyranny that ruled us for uncounted time. Stay. Help us rebuild this land, construct machines. We have not forgotten all the science we knew before Golan-Kirt came, and can give you much in return. Harl shook his head. We must at least try to go back. The two 20th century men stood beside the plane. Before them was a solid mass of humanity, silent in the shadow of the ruins of Denver, come to bid the time travelers a regretful farewell. A chill wind howled over the desert, the furs of the future men fluttering in the gale. We are reluctant to let you go to what may be your death, said old Agnar. We are selfish enough to wish to hold you for ourselves, but we love you enough to let you go. You taught us hate was wrong. It is impossible to go back in time. Why not remain? We need you. Our land grows less food every year, and we must learn to make synthetic food or starve. Stay and help us. Again, Harl shook his head. No, we must try. If we succeed, we shall return and bring books of knowledge, tools to work with. You'll fail, said Agnar, combing his beard with skinny fingers. But if we don't, we will return, said Bill. We are sorry to leave you. Please believe that. I do believe it, cried the old man, and seized their hands in a farewell clasp. Harl opened the door of the plane and Bill clambered in. At the door, Harl stood with upraised hand. Goodbye. Someday we will return. The crowd burst into a roar of farewell. Harl closed the door. The motors bellowed, and the machine charged down the sand and took the air. Bill circled the ruined city once in a last mute goodbye to the men who watched silently below. Then Harl threw the lever. Again the utter darkness, the feeling of hanging in nothingness. The motors, barely turning, muttered at the change. A minute passed, 2 minutes. Who says we can't travel back in time? Harl shouted triumphantly, pointing to the needle slowly creeping back across the dial. Maybe the old man was wrong after. Bill never finished the sentence. Roll her out, he screamed. Roll her out. One of our engines is going dead. Harl jerked frantically at the lever. The faulty motor choked, coughed, then broke into a steady drone. The two regarded each other, blanched. They had escaped a crash and death by bare seconds. Again they hung in the air. Again the brick-red sun, the desert, the sea. Below them loomed the ruins of Denver. We couldn't have gone far back, said Harl. It looks the same as ever. They circled the ruins. We'd better land in the desert and fix the engine, Harl suggested. We don't want to have to kill Golan-Kirt a second time. We might not manage it twice. The plane flew low. He nosed it up. The faulty engine sputtered and missed again. She's going dead for certain this time, yelled Bill. We'll have to chance it, Harl. Land and chance getting away again. Harl nodded grimly. Before them lay the broad expanse of the arena. That or crash. As Bill nosed the plane down, the missing motor sputtered its last and died. They flashed over the white walls of the amphitheater and down into the arena, struck the sand, raced across it, slowed to a stop. Harl opened the door. Our only chance is to fix it up fast and get out of here, he shouted. We don't want to meet that damn brain again. He stopped short. Bill, he said, scarcely above a whisper. Am I seeing things? Before him, set on the sands only a few yards from the plane, stood a statue of heroic size, a statue of himself and Bill. He could read the inscription carved into its white stone base, in characters closely resembling written English. Slowly, haltingly, stumbling over an occasional queer character, he read it aloud. 2 men, Harl Swanson and Bill Cressman, came out of time to kill Golan-Kirt and to free the race. Below it, other characters. They may return. Bill, he sobbed. We haven't traveled back in time. We've traveled further into the future. Look at that stone, eroded, ready to crumble. That statue has stood there for thousands of years. Bill slumped back into his seat, face ashen, eyes staring. The old man was right, he screamed. We'll never see the 20th century again. He leaned toward the time machine, face twitching. Those instruments, those damned instruments, they were wrong. They lied. They lied. With his bare fists he beat at them, smashing them, unaware the glass cut deep gashes into hands already smeared with blood. Silence weighed down over the plain. Absolutely no sound. Bill broke it. The future men, he cried. Where are the future men? He answered his own question. They are all dead, starved, because they couldn't manufacture synthetic food. We are alone. Alone at the end of the world. Harl stood in the door of the plane. Over the rim of the amphitheater, the huge red sun hung in a sky devoid of clouds. A slight wind stirred the sand at the base of the crumbling statue.